I suppose I should have seen it coming. The signs were always there, glaring at me from every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every moment I convinced myself that this time would be different. But on that Thanksgiving evening, as I stood in the marble-tiled bathroom of my parents' mansion, staring at the red wine stains spreading across my white dress like a bloodstain, I finally understood that some truths are too painful to acknowledge until they're spoken aloud by the people who are supposed to love you most. My name is Eleanor Vance, though everyone in my family has always called me Ellie, usually in that dismissive tone reserved for things that are necessary but unpleasant. I'm the middle daughter, sandwiched between Tori, the golden child who could do no wrong, and Chloe, the baby who never had to grow up. For 28 years, I had played my role perfectly. I was the responsible one, the problem solver, the invisible support beam holding up the entire structure of my family's carefully constructed facade. The Vance family looked perfect from the outside. My father, Richard Vance, owned a mid-sized investment firm that bore his name. My mother, Margaret, was a socialite who spent her days planning charity galas and her evenings hosting dinner parties for Boston's upper crust. Tori had married a successful attorney and lived in a brownstone in Beacon Hill, posting carefully curated photos of her perfect life on Instagram. Chloe was the artistic one, flitting between expensive art classes and luxury vacations funded by credit cards I didn't know bore my name as the guarantor until much later. And then there was me. I had graduated top of my class from MIT with a degree in finance. I worked 80-hour weeks as a senior financial analyst at a prestigious firm, the kind of job people spend years trying to land. But at family gatherings, my achievements were always footnotes, brief mentions before the conversation shifted back to Tori's latest vacation or Chloe's newest painting. I had learned to accept this. Or rather, I had learned to bury the hurt so deep that I could almost pretend it didn't exist. I told myself that family was about sacrifice, about putting others first, about being the bigger person. I told myself a lot of things that weren't true. The Thanksgiving dinner that changed everything started like all the others. I arrived at my parents' house with Liam, my boyfriend of 2 years. Liam was different from anyone I had ever dated. He was a high school teacher, genuine and kind, the type of person who actually listened when you spoke. My family tolerated him, though my mother had made it clear on multiple occasions that she found his profession disappointingly modest. The dining room was a showcase of my mother's taste. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the mahogany table, which was laden with china that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Candles flickered in silver holders, and the smell of roasted turkey filled the air. My mother had invited several family friends, the kind of people who measured success in vacation homes and country club memberships. I had just received the Whitmore Award, one of the most prestigious honors in corporate finance, given to only 3 people nationwide each year. It was the culmination of years of grueling work, countless late nights, and a project that had saved my firm millions. I was proud of it, though I tried to downplay my excitement. I had learned that lesson early. As we sat down to dinner, I mentioned the award, keeping my tone casual. My mother's response was immediate and predictable. She waved her hand dismissively, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Good for you, darling. But let's not talk shop at the table. It's Thanksgiving after all. Tori, why don't you tell everyone about your trip to Paris?" Tori needed no further encouragement. She launched into a detailed account of her 2-week European vacation, describing boutique hotels and Michelin-starred restaurants with the air of someone who had earned such luxuries rather than having them handed to her. I picked at my food and smiled in the right places, feeling Liam's hand squeeze mine under the table in silent support. Then came the story. Tori, perhaps emboldened by her 3rd glass of expensive Bordeaux, decided to share an anecdote from my college years. She told everyone about the time I had invested my entire savings, money I had earned from years of part-time jobs and internships, into what I thought was a promising startup founded by a classmate. The startup failed within 6 months, and I lost everything. Tori told the story as if it were hilarious, emphasizing my naivety, my poor judgment, the way I had cried when I realized the money was gone. The table erupted in laughter. My father chuckled and shook his head. My mother tittered behind her wineglass. Even the guests joined in, comfortable in their mockery of someone else's pain. I felt my face burn, but I kept my expression neutral. This was normal. This was what family dinners were like. I could handle it. But Liam couldn't. His voice cut through the laughter, clear and firm. "That's interesting, Tori. What Ellie didn't tell you is that she learned from that experience and went on to become one of the most successful analysts in her firm. In fact, she's the reason your father's company didn't go bankrupt last year. She spent months restructuring the finances, working for free because family comes first, right?" The laughter stopped. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. I wanted to kick Liam under the table, to signal him to stop, but part of me was grateful that someone had finally said it. My father's face turned red. He set down his fork with deliberate care, his jaw clenched. "Liam, I don't think you understand the complexities of business. Perhaps it's best if you stick to discussing subjects you're qualified to comment on." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. My mother quickly tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. The evening had shifted into something tense and brittle. That's when Chloe made her move. In what I'm sure she would later claim was an accident, she knocked over her wine glass, sending a cascade of red liquid directly onto my white dress. The wine soaked through immediately, spreading across the fabric in an ugly, irregular stain. "Oh my God, Ellie, I'm so sorry. You're always so clumsy, though. Remember that time you spilled coffee all over yourself at my art show?" She hadn't apologized at all. She had blamed me for her own action, a trick I had seen her use countless times. I excused myself calmly, walking to the bathroom with as much dignity as I could muster. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, could sense their relief that the awkward moment had passed. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. The stain looked worse under the bright lights. I grabbed a hand towel and tried to blot it out, knowing it was futile. The dress was ruined, but that didn't matter. I could buy another dress. What I couldn't repair was the growing crack in the foundation of my denial. I don't know why I paused at the bathroom door before opening it. Maybe some instinct warned me. Maybe I needed a moment to compose myself. Whatever the reason, I heard my mother's voice clearly through the heavy oak door. She was speaking to one of her friends, Mrs. Harrison, in that theatrical tone she used when she wanted sympathy. Honestly, sometimes I wish Eleanor had never been born. Life would be so much simpler. Just Tori and Chloe would have been enough. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stood there, frozen, my hand on the doorknob. I waited for someone to contradict her, to laugh it off as a terrible joke, to say something, anything, that would make it less devastating. But no one did. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then my father cleared his throat, and the conversation moved on, as if my mother had commented on the weather. I pushed open the door and walked back into the dining room. Every eye turned to me, and in that moment, I saw the truth written on their faces. They knew I had heard. My mother's expression held a flicker of something that might have been guilt, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. Tori looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Chloe was checking her phone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I picked up the wine-soaked napkin from my lap and placed it carefully on the table. I met my mother's eyes, and when I spoke, my voice was steady and cold. "Congratulations, Mother. Your wish is about to come true." I turned to Liam. He was already standing, reading the situation perfectly. "We're leaving." We walked out of that house together while the guests sat in stunned silence. I didn't look back. I didn't grab my coat. I just left, and with every step away from that dining room, I felt something inside me shift and settle into place. The drive home was silent. Liam knew better than to speak. He just drove, occasionally glancing over at me with concern. When we reached our apartment, a modest two-bedroom in Cambridge that I paid for entirely, I went straight to my laptop. I didn't break down. I didn't collapse into tears. Instead, I opened up my files and began to plan. Liam sat beside me, waiting. Finally, he asked the question I knew was coming. "What are you going to do?" I looked at him, and for the first time in hours, I felt something other than numbness. I felt clarity. "I'm going to show them exactly what their world looks like without me." I spent the next several hours explaining everything to Liam, laying out the full extent of my family's dependence on me. I had hidden it well, even from him, because acknowledging it would mean admitting how badly I was being used. The facts were stark. For the past 5 years, I had been the uncredited CFO of my father's company. I had restructured their debt, streamlined their operations, and saved them from bankruptcy not once but twice. I had done this while working my full-time job, sacrificing my evenings and weekends, all without any formal recognition or compensation. My name was on the mortgage of my parents' house as a co-signer. When they had nearly lost the property 3 years ago due to my father's risky investments, I had stepped in and guaranteed the loan with my own credit and assets. They never thanked me. They acted as if it was my duty. Chloe's credit cards, all 6 of them, were linked to my accounts. I paid them off every month, watching the bills climb higher and higher. Designer handbags, expensive dinners, luxury spa treatments. She spent money like water, and I was the well that never ran dry. I had also discovered, while managing my father's books, several instances of questionable tax deductions and accounting practices. Nothing egregious enough to trigger an audit on its own, but concerning enough that I had spent months quietly fixing the problems and ensuring everything was above board. I had documentation of all of it. I was the foundation. I was the safety net. I was the person who made their comfortable lives possible, and they wished I had never been born. Liam listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the only question that mattered. "What do you need from me? I need you to trust me. What I'm about to do is going to look cruel to some people, but it's not revenge, it's justice." He nodded, and I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. It was respect, deep and unwavering. "Then, let's do it." I called my plan Operation Ghost. The goal was simple: I would remove myself from their lives completely and legally, forcing them to face the consequences of their own choices and actions. I would do it quickly, systematically, and without giving them any opportunity to manipulate me into staying. Monday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine, mockingly cheerful. I was already at my desk at dawn, my resignation letter from my father's company composed and ready. It was professional, brief, and effective immediately. I sent it at 8 in the morning, along with a separate email to the company's board of directors, outlining the fact that I had been performing the duties of CFO without title or compensation, and that my departure would necessitate hiring someone qualified to fill that role. I also deleted all of my personal files from the company's system. These were notes, analyses, and projections that existed nowhere else, things I had created in my own time using my own expertise. They were legally mine to remove. Without them, my father would be flying blind, unable to understand his own company's financial position. By 10 in the morning, my phone was ringing. It was my father. I didn't answer. He called 17 times that day. I didn't answer any of them. Tuesday brought the second phase. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, whom I had hired over the weekend, sent a formal notice to the bank that held my parents' mortgage. I was requesting to be removed as a cosigner. This triggered an immediate reevaluation of the loan. The bank would now assess whether Richard and Margaret Vance could support the mortgage on their own. They couldn't. I knew the numbers. Without my income and assets backing the loan, they would be required to refinance or face foreclosure. They had 90 days to figure it out. Simultaneously, I called every credit card company and removed myself as the guarantor and payer on Chloe's accounts. The cards were frozen immediately, pending new payment arrangements. Chloe had been in the middle of a shopping trip at Neiman Marcus when her card was declined. I knew this because Tori called me, screaming, within an hour. I didn't answer that call either. Wednesday was the day I had been most anxious about. I had drafted an email over the course of several days, revising it until every word was perfect. It was addressed to my extended family, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, and to the family friends who had been present at that Thanksgiving dinner. The email was not emotional. It did not plead or accuse. It simply stated facts. I listed, with dates and amounts, every financial contribution I had made to my family over the past 5 years. I documented the hours I had worked for my father's company. I explained that I had been the co-signer on the house and the guarantor on Chloe's debts. I noted that I had received no compensation, recognition, or even basic appreciation for any of this. I concluded with a single paragraph that I had agonized over but ultimately decided was necessary. Due to irreconcilable differences in values and the lack of mutual respect within this relationship, I am formally ending all financial and professional support to members of my immediate family, effective immediately. This decision is final and non-negotiable. I will not be responding to requests for reconsideration. I wish them well in their future endeavors. I hit send at exactly 9 in the morning. Then I turned off my phone. The response was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, my laptop began lighting up with email notifications. Tori sent 3 emails in the first hour alone, each more aggressive than the last. She threatened to sue me for abandonment, a legal concept that didn't apply to adult siblings. She called me selfish, cruel, and vindictive. Chloe's emails were different. They were desperate and manipulative, full of tears and guilt trips. She wrote about how much she loved me, how sorry she was, how she had never meant to hurt me. She conveniently forgot to mention the wine incident, or any of the countless other small cruelties she had inflicted over the years. My father's emails were brief and furious. He ordered me to return to work immediately. He threatened to have me charged with theft for removing my own files. He claimed I was destroying the family legacy. He never once acknowledged what I had contributed or why I might be upset. My mother sent nothing. Her silence was somehow worse than all the others combined. I read each email once, then archived it. I did not respond. Liam watched me from across the room, ready to intervene if I showed any sign of weakening. But I felt nothing except a strange sense of lightness, as if I had been carrying a heavy weight for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. The voicemails were harder to ignore. I made the mistake of listening to one from Tori. She was crying, her voice breaking as she told me I was tearing the family apart over one stupid comment. She said I was being dramatic. She said I was ruining everyone's lives out of spite. I deleted the rest without listening. While my family was imploding, Liam and I were executing the final phase of the plan. I had accepted a job offer that I had received several weeks earlier. It was a director-level position at a major tech firm in Austin, Texas. The salary was substantial, the benefits were excellent, and most importantly, it was 1,500 miles away from Boston. We had already found an apartment online. We spent the week packing, sorting through our belongings with ruthless efficiency. I sold my furniture, donated my clothes, and reduced my entire life to what would fit in a moving truck. I felt no sentimentality about leaving. Boston had never felt like home. It had felt like a prison. I changed my phone number. I deleted every social media account I had. I even changed my email address. When we drove away from Cambridge on Sunday morning, Eleanor Vance ceased to exist in any searchable, findable form. The drive to Texas took 3 days. Liam drove while I sat in the passenger seat, watching the landscape change outside my window. As we left Massachusetts behind, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free. Austin welcomed us with warm weather and endless blue skies. Our new apartment was in a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. It was smaller than my old place, but infinitely more beautiful because it was truly mine. I started my new job the following Monday. My team was smart, collaborative, and professional. They valued my input. They listened when I spoke. Within the first month, I had implemented a new financial tracking system that saved the company millions. My boss called me into her office to thank me personally and tell me I was exceeding every expectation. It was a strange feeling, being appreciated for doing exactly what I had always done. I realized that I had spent so long in a toxic environment that I had forgotten what healthy relationships looked like. Liam found a position teaching at a highly rated high school. He came home every day with stories about his students, his face animated with genuine joy. We settled into a routine that felt impossibly normal and wonderfully boring. We cooked dinner together. We watched movies on weekends. We talked about everything and nothing. 6 months after we left Boston, Liam proposed. We were hiking in the hill country, surrounded by wildflowers and sunshine. He got down on one knee and told me that I was the strongest, most incredible person he had ever met. He said he wanted to spend the rest of his life making sure I never doubted my worth again. I said yes through tears. The first tears I had cried since that Thanksgiving dinner. We got married in a small ceremony at a botanical garden. It was just us, a handful of friends we had made in Austin, and an officiant. I wore a simple dress and carried wildflowers. There was no one there to tell me I looked too plain or to redirect attention to themselves. It was perfect. A year passed, then another. I threw myself into my work and was promoted to vice president of finance. Liam and I bought a house, a beautiful mid-century modern with a huge backyard and rooms filled with light. We talked about starting a family, and I found myself actually excited about the prospect of being a mother. I would do it differently. I would do it right. I thought about my family sometimes, usually late at night when sleep was elusive. I wondered if they had figured things out. I wondered if they had learned anything. But I never reached out, and I never went back to check. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. Then, 2 years after I had left, I received an email that changed everything again. It was from my Aunt Linda, my mother's younger sister. Linda had always been kind to me, the one family member who had seemed to see me as a person rather than a tool. We had never been close, but she had been one of the few who hadn't mocked me at family gatherings. Her email was short and to the point. She wanted me to know what had happened to my family, not because she thought I would care, but because she thought I deserved to know the consequences of my choices. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. The company my father had built his entire identity around had collapsed within 4 months of my departure. Without me to manage the finances, Richard had made several catastrophic investment decisions. The board had forced him out, and the company had been sold for parts. My father, at 63, was now working as a sales associate at a luxury car dealership, taking orders from men half his age. My parents had lost the house. The bank had foreclosed after they failed to refinance the mortgage. They now lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable neighborhood, the kind of place my mother would have once sneered at. Margaret had stopped attending her social events. Aunt Linda wrote that my mother had fallen into a deep depression, unable to cope with the loss of status and the whispers of their former friends. Tori's perfect marriage had imploded. Her husband, a man whose career depended on reputation and connections, had filed for divorce once the extent of the Vance family's financial troubles became public. He had taken everything in the settlement. Tori was now living in a modest apartment and working as a realtor, struggling to maintain any semblance of her former lifestyle. Chloe had been forced to get a job for the first time in her life. She was working as a barista at a Starbucks, complaining endlessly on social media about her terrible customers and unfair hours. She had moved back in with my parents, and according to Aunt Linda, the 3 of them spent most of their time blaming me for their circumstances. I read the email twice, then closed my laptop. Liam looked at me from across the room, concern evident on his face. "You okay?" I thought about it for a moment, really thought about it. I waited for the guilt to come, for the sadness, for any of the emotions that a good daughter should feel upon learning her family had fallen on hard times, but I felt nothing except a sense of vindication. They had treated me as if I were worthless, and I had shown them my value in the only way they could understand. I had removed myself, and they had crumbled. I'm fine. I'm actually really fine. I forwarded the email to Liam without comment. He read it, then looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Are you going to reach out to them?" "No. They made their choices. These are the consequences." Life continued. I threw myself into work with renewed energy. I was promoted again, this time to Chief Financial Officer of our division. I was 32 years old and at the top of my field, earning more in a year than my father had made in 5. I bought designer clothes that I actually liked, not the conservative pieces my mother had always insisted were appropriate. I cut my hair short and dyed it a deep auburn. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the confident woman staring back at me. Liam and I started trying for a baby. After several months, I saw the positive pregnancy test and felt a surge of joy so intense, it almost knocked me over. I was going to be a mother. I was going to give a child all the love and support and recognition that I had never received. I was 7 months pregnant when Tori found me. I still don't know how she managed it. I had been so careful, had covered my tracks so thoroughly. But she showed up at my office building one afternoon, waiting for me in the parking garage. I saw her before she saw me. She looked terrible. Her clothes were expensive but worn, clearly items from her former life that she was still clinging to. Her hair needed a cut, and she had gained weight, something that would have horrified the old Tori. But it was her expression that struck me most. She looked bitter, angry, and desperate in equal measures. She spotted me and rushed over, her heels clicking sharply on the concrete. "Ellie, finally. Do you have any idea how hard you've been to find?" I stopped walking but kept my distance. I placed a protective hand on my swollen belly, a gesture that didn't escape her notice. "What are you doing here, Tori? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? I'm trying to save our family. You ruined everything, Ellie. Everything." Dad lost his company, Mom is barely functional, Chloe can't even afford to live on her own, and it's all because of you. Her voice was rising, echoing off the concrete walls. I saw a few colleagues from other companies glancing our way as they walked to their cars. I kept my voice calm and low. "I didn't ruin anything, Tori. I simply stopped enabling a system that was toxic and exploitative. Your lives fell apart because they were built on a foundation of my unpaid labor and unacknowledged sacrifice." "Oh, don't give me that corporate speak. You destroyed our family because of one thing Mom said. One comment. We were family, Ellie. Family forgives. Family sticks together." I felt something cold settle in my chest. After everything, after all this time, she still didn't understand. She saw herself as the victim in this story. It wasn't one comment, Tori. It was a lifetime of comments, a lifetime of being treated as invisible, as less than. That Thanksgiving dinner wasn't the cause. It was just the moment I finally admitted to myself what I had always known. You never saw me as family. You saw me as an ATM and a crutch to make yourselves feel superior. That's not true. We love you. Love? You treated me like a servant. You mocked my achievements, dismissed my feelings, and took my money without a second thought. And when I finally stood up for myself, you called it selfish. That's not love, Tori. That's exploitation. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Then her expression hardened into something ugly. "You're really not going to help us? After everything we did for you? We raised you, gave you a home, a family." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. "You didn't do anything for me. I paid my own way through college. I bought my own car. I funded my own life. And then I funded yours. The only thing you gave me was pain and the mistaken belief that I deserved it." Tori's face crumpled. For a moment, I thought she might actually apologize. Might actually show some understanding. But then her expression shifted back to anger. "You're going to regret this. You're all alone now. No family, no one who really knows you. You'll realize what you threw away, and by then it will be too late." I looked at her, this person I had once loved despite everything, and felt only pity. "I'm not alone, Tori. I have a husband who loves me, friends who respect me, colleagues who value me, and a baby on the way. I have everything I ever wanted. What I threw away was toxicity, manipulation, and people who took everything and gave nothing in return. I didn't destroy the family. I just stopped being the person who held it together while being treated like I didn't matter. Your family collapsed because it was rotten from the inside. I was just the person who finally stopped propping it up." I walked past her toward my car. She called after me, her voice desperate now. "Ellie, please. We need you. I need you." I turned back one last time. "No, you don't need me. You need therapy. You need to learn how to be self-sufficient. You need to understand that other people have value beyond what they can provide you. But most of all, you need to leave me alone. Don't come here again. Don't try to find me. Don't contact me. I'm done." I got in my car and drove away, watching her shrinking figure in my rearview mirror. I waited for the guilt to come, for the sadness, for something that would tell me I had been too harsh. But I felt only relief. That evening, I told Liam what had happened. He held me close, his hand resting on my belly where our daughter was doing somersaults. "You okay?" "I'm better than okay. I'm free." The next few months flew by in a blur of preparation. We painted the nursery a soft yellow and filled it with books and toys. We took birthing classes and argued good-naturedly about baby names. We built a life that felt solid and real and entirely ours. Our daughter was born on a spring morning, arriving 3 weeks early and screaming her displeasure at the world. They placed her in my arms, this tiny, perfect human who looked like both of us and neither of us all at once. I looked down at her and made a silent promise. You will never doubt that you are wanted. You will never wonder if you are loved. You will never be invisible. We named her Grace, because she was grace itself, an unearned gift that changed everything. 6 months after Grace was born, I was nursing her in the nursery when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered it anyway. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Maybe it was the contentment that made me feel charitable. Whatever the reason, I picked up. Hello? There was a long pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in almost 3 years. Ellie? It was my father. He sounded old, older than his years, tired. I should have hung up immediately. But something in his tone made me wait. Hi, Dad. I heard about the baby. Congratulations. Thank you. Another long pause. I waited him out. I called to tell you that I'm sorry. The words hung in the air between us. I shifted Grace in my arms, looking down at her peaceful, sleeping face. Sorry for what, specifically? For all of it. For not seeing what you were doing for us. For not appreciating you. For allowing your mother and sisters to treat you the way they did. For treating you that way myself. It was the first time he had ever apologized to me for anything. I felt something crack in my chest. Some small, hard piece of old pain beginning to dissolve. Why now? Why are you calling me now? After all this time? Because I lost everything, and it made me see clearly for the first time in my life. I built my whole identity on that company, on being successful and respected. When it all fell apart, I had to figure out who I was without it, and I realized that I had lost the only person who truly mattered. I lost you. I was quiet for a long moment, processing his words. You didn't lose me, Dad. You threw me away. There's a difference. I know. God, Ellie, I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to want to talk to me. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what we did to you, and I'm ashamed. Grace stirred in my arms, making small snuffling sounds. I looked out the window at the bright Texas sun and thought about what I wanted to say. I appreciate the apology. I really do. But it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase 28 years of being invisible. I know. And I can't have you back in my life the way things were. I won't go back to being that person. I'm not asking you to. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. And that I'm proud of you. I always was, even if I never said it. Tears were running down my face now, silent and surprising. Liam appeared in the doorway, concern on his face, but I waved him away. Thank you for saying that. It matters, even now. Can I ask about the baby? What's her name? Grace. Her name is Grace. That's beautiful. Is she healthy? She's perfect. She's absolutely perfect. I'm glad, Ellie. I'm glad you have everything you deserve. We talked for a few more minutes, awkward and careful. He told me he was seeing a therapist, working on himself. He said my mother was doing the same, though she wasn't ready to reach out yet. He said Tori and Chloe were angry with him for calling me, but he didn't care anymore about keeping the peace. When we hung up, I sat in the quiet nursery for a long time, holding my daughter and thinking about forgiveness. I wasn't sure I was capable of it. Not fully. But maybe I didn't need to be. Maybe it was enough to acknowledge that people could change, even if the damage they caused couldn't be undone. Liam came in and sat beside me, not speaking, just being there. Finally, I turned to him. He apologized. How do you feel about that? I don't know yet, but I think I feel something, and that's more than I expected. Grace is 3 years old now. She's brilliant and funny and has her father's kind heart and my stubborn determination. She knows she has grandparents and aunts somewhere, but she's never met them. I've sent photos occasionally, updating my father on her milestones. He always responds with gratitude and never asks for more than I'm willing to give. My mother sent a letter 6 months ago. It was short, written in her elegant script on expensive stationery. She apologized for what she said that Thanksgiving night. She said she had been cruel and thoughtless, that she had been a terrible mother, and that she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again. She signed it simply Mom. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. I've learned that I don't owe anyone access to my life, not even the people who gave me life. Tori has never apologized. According to my father, she still believes she was the victim in all of this. She's remarried now, to a man who works in insurance. They live modestly, and she's had to learn what it means to work for what she has. I hope it's taught her something, but I don't think about it much anymore. Chloe reached out once, a long, rambling text message that arrived on my new number somehow. She said she understood now why I left, that she had been spoiled and thoughtless, that she missed me. But then she asked if I could help her pay for art school. I blocked the number. My career has continued to flourish. Last year, I was headhunted by a Fortune 500 company and now serve as their chief financial officer. I'm the youngest person to ever hold the position at this company. I mentor young women in finance, particularly those who seem to be struggling with family expectations or self-worth. I recognize the signs now, the way they apologize for taking up space, the way they downplay their achievements. I tell them what I wish someone had told me earlier. Your value is not determined by what you can do for others. Your worth is inherent, and it's not selfish to put yourself first sometimes. Liam and I are talking about having another child. Grace wants a sibling, she tells us daily. Preferably a sister, but she'll accept a brother if that's what we get. We laugh and tell her we'll see what we can do. Our life is full of these small, perfect moments. Sunday morning pancakes, bedtime stories, dance parties in the kitchen, the ordinary magic of a healthy, loving family. Sometimes people ask me if I regret cutting off my family. They usually ask in that careful, judgmental way that suggests they think I should regret it. They talk about forgiveness, about family being forever, about second chances. I tell them the truth. I don't regret it for a second. I didn't cut off my family on a whim or out of spite. I made a calculated decision to remove myself from a situation that was destroying me, emotionally and psychologically. I gave them years of my life, my money, my time, and my energy. I gave them everything I had, and they treated it as if it were worthless. They treated me as if I were worthless. Leaving wasn't about punishment. It was about survival. It was about finally loving myself enough to walk away from people who didn't love me back, regardless of what they claimed. The best revenge really is living well, but that's not why I did it. I didn't build this life to show them what they lost. I built it because I deserved it. I deserved to be seen, to be valued, to be loved without conditions or caveats. And I am. Every single day, I am. Last week, Grace asked me about my mother. We were looking at a book about families, and she noticed that we never visit grandparents on my side the way we visit Liam's parents every few months. "Mama, why don't we see your mommy and daddy?" I picked her up and settled her on my lap, thinking carefully about what to say. I've always believed in honesty, even with difficult topics. Because sometimes, baby, people don't treat each other very nicely, even in families. And when that happens, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to take a step back. Were they mean to you? Yes, sweetheart. They were. That's sad. It is sad. But you know what? It taught me something very important. It taught me how I want to be as a mommy. I want you to always know that you're loved, that you're important, and that your feelings matter. She thought about this for a moment, her little face serious. You're a good mommy. Thank you, baby. I try very hard to be. She went back to her book, satisfied with the answer. I sat there holding her, thinking about the cycles we break and the ones we perpetuate. I will never be a perfect mother. I'll make mistakes, lose my patience, say the wrong thing. But I will never, ever make my daughter feel invisible. I will never make her question her worth. I will never treat her like a tool to be used for my own benefit. That's the real victory. Not that my family suffered consequences for their actions, though they did. Not that I succeeded in my career, though I have. The real victory is that I broke the cycle. I created something new, something healthy, something based on mutual respect and genuine love. I am standing in Grace's nursery right now, 6 months pregnant with our second child. The room is painted a soft green this time, ready for our son who's due in the spring. Liam is beside me, his arm around my waist, his hand resting on my belly. Grace is asleep in her room down the hall, clutching the stuffed elephant she's had since birth. This is my family. These people who choose me every day, who see me and value me and love me without expecting me to earn it. This is what family is supposed to be. Outside the window, Austin spreads out beneath us, glittering in the twilight. This city that took me in and gave me space to become who I was always meant to be. I think about the woman I was 3 years ago, standing in that bathroom staring at a wine stain, hearing words that shattered what was left of my denial. Sometimes I wish Eleanor had never been born. My mother got her wish, in a way. Eleanor Vance doesn't exist anymore. That woman who bent herself into impossible shapes trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it, she's gone. In her place is Ellie O'Connell, wife, mother, CFO, a woman who knows her worth and refuses to settle for less than she deserves. A woman who walks through the world with her head high, not because she's never been hurt, but because she survived the hurt and came out stronger. I place my hand over Liam's, feeling our son move beneath our palms. Grace will wake up soon, demanding dinner and stories and attention. We'll eat together, laugh together, be together in all the messy, beautiful ways that families are. And somewhere in Boston, in a small apartment I'll never visit, my parents are living with the consequences of their choices. My sisters are learning, perhaps too late, that people are not infinite resources to be drained dry. My mother is confronting the reality that words have power, that cruelty has costs, that wishes sometimes come true in the worst possible ways. I hope they've learned something. I hope they've grown. I hope they treat the people in their lives now with more kindness and respect than they ever showed me. But whether they have or haven't, it's no longer my concern. Their journey is theirs to walk. Mine is my own. I lean back against Liam, feeling his steady heartbeat against my back, and look at the life we've built together. This beautiful, ordinary, perfect life that I fought so hard to claim. They wished I had never been born. I showed them exactly what their world would look like without me. The house of cards collapsed. The illusion shattered. The truth emerged. But this wasn't about revenge. This was never about revenge. This was about justice. This was about recognizing that I deserved better and having the courage to claim it. This was about understanding that leaving people who hurt you isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. This was about learning that you can love people from a distance, or not at all, and that's okay. Most importantly, this was about discovering that the family you're born into doesn't have to define you. You can create your own family, built on foundations of respect and genuine affection. You can write your own story, and mine, the one I'm writing now with every choice I make, every boundary I set, every moment I choose myself, is so much better than the one they had planned for me. Grace calls out from her room, awake now and wanting us. Liam kisses my temple and goes to get her. I stand at the window for one more moment, my hand on my belly, watching the sun set over a city that feels like home in a way Boston never did. The daughter they wished had never been born is gone. In her place is a woman who knows exactly who she is and refuses to apologize for it, and that woman is happy. Truly, deeply, unequivocally happy. That's not revenge, that's not justice. That's victory.